Hi, this is Dr. Rebecca Wood, and I would like to welcome you to our Week 5 lecture. This week we will be reading and discussing how St. Louis left the tragedy of the Civil War behind, or at least as much as one could leave the Civil War behind, yet faced a challenging future. Our first author this week was part of a movement that sought to move the United States Capitol to St. Louis after the Civil War. Logan Uriah Rivas helped to organize delegates from central and midwestern states who planned to lobby Congress to relocate the national capital. His publication, St. Louis, the Future Great City of the World, appeared in a variety of versions for more than a decade. He had an outsized personality and a unique personal style, as evidenced by this photo. His writing is full of statistics and enthusiasm for his adopted city. L.U.'s wife, Rebecca Morrow Rivas, came to St. Louis from Ireland by way of New Jersey. She married him when he was more than 50 years old and she was only 27. She started writing poetry as a child and wrote a poem with essentially the same title as her husband's book. This is a sample couplet from her poem. St. Louis, we echo the name, repeated by them as the city of fame. Our next author is Mark Twain, also known as Samuel Clemens. Very few American authors have ever achieved the success and fame that Mark Twain did. The town of Hannibal, Missouri, where young Samuel Clemens spent his young years, is a virtual shrine to his life and his career, and I highly recommend visiting there if you haven't done so already. Although Mark Twain's writing has withstood the test of time, there are aspects of his work that may have been problematic, such as the language and events in his most famous work, Huckleberry Finn. And this is a partial list of his most notable works, including A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, Pudd'nhead Wilson, The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, The Innocents Abroad, and Life on the Mississippi. He also wrote The Prince and the Pauper, which is a very interesting story about English royalty. Mark Twain's life as a Mississippi riverboat pilot was the culmination of a childhood dream, and it's discussed in one of our reading assignments this week. He filled his life with adventure, promoted himself and his work tirelessly, and helped to make the world a better place by advocating for those who were less fortunate. He used humor to entertain and as a weapon. He left many colorful quotes behind, including, "If you don't read the newspapers, you are uninformed. If you do read them, you are misinformed." So he had a commentary about the news media himself. Kate Chopin, another of our authors, was actually born in St. Louis, and she lived here much of her life. After the death of her husband, she worked to support her children by writing, and many of her works are considered controversial and explored issues of marriage and gender roles in unconventional ways. Her dramatic life included her novel The Awakening. It was her most controversial books. It's still available, though, and has been published in multiple versions. The Awakening shocked her audience and was removed from many library shelves. She died, sadly enough, after a day of visiting the 1904 World's Fair. Our final author this week is William Marion Reedy, who wrote the essay, "What's the Matter with St. Louis?" A question that goes all the way through our textbook, and also whenever we drive through the city, if we're fortunate enough to do so, or see pictures, we can see beautiful things, and not very far away there will be other crumbling buildings or things that show that the city is not all it could be. And William Marion Reedy attended Christian Brothers Academy and then St. Louis University. So he is one of our fellow alumni. He strongly advocated for social reform and for the 1904 World's Fair. He supported American poets in his publication, The Mirror. He obviously loved St. Louis, but his passionate love for the city resulted in disillusionment, which is evidenced by that famous essay. And I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about paper 2. So we want to think again and continue to think about writing and research mechanics. And for the paper 2 assignment, we are going to create our own written version of an episode of Living St. Louis. And you can explore possible topics by visiting this Living St. Louis website, and hopefully the link will work for you, or you can Google the website. Please check the course calendar for your due date. The length of this paper is 8 to 10 full pages plus an MLA works cited page, and these little links here and on your assignment sheet should take you to the Purdue OWL so that you can use that for reference as you document your work. File type, it should be attached as a Microsoft Word file in the Blackboard assignment module when you've turned it in. And citation and formatting, again, MLA style. And for research, you must include at least 2 primary sources, which could be essays or poetry from our textbook, and at least 3 secondary sources discussing what's been going on in St. Louis in a different type of venues. So it might be a journal article, it might be a newspaper article, it might be something in a history book, but you will need at least 5 sources total for this paper. And here are some more examples of episodes for Living St. Louis on the 9 network, including Birds on the Bat. So you could write about sports in St. Louis if you can somehow relate it to our reading assignments. Department stores, restaurants, history of cities such as Ferguson or other cities in the area, architectural and photos, and Scott Joplin or Tennessee Williams or another personality or author from our studies or someone related to our studies. I hope you all have a great week, and I'm looking forward to reading all of your discussion board posts and interacting with you during the week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.